Hi, good evening, everyone. Is it okay if I sit here and speak to you? I want to try and keep this short. I'm really focusing on the book, but I can't promise that I will. I'm going to try and keep it to 15 minutes. The way I've structured what I want to leave you with in terms of reflections on the second part of the book that I found myself gravitating towards, and I'll be reading some quotes from the book as well. I've broken it down into some key themes that I felt are woven into that part of the book, that of the danger of unilateralism and the tools it utilizes. This includes xenophobia and the paradox of the one model, which is something that I think I'm always gravitating towards. On the need of co-state counterweights and the reorganization of NAM, which I would love to hear Dr. Jayatilaka's thoughts on later. And finally, with regard to the open market and world economy, which I think I'd leave, and maybe we can explore it during the Q&A. Dr. Jayatilaka was very specific in his instruction that this event and panel be about the book and not about the man. But I found myself finding that if I omit that crucial element of the author, that I can't really speak transparently about some of the points that I want to focus on, and for that I hope he'll forgive me. So what is the significance of the book? If I needed to encapsulate it in one sentence, I'd have to say perspective, which is why I can't separate the book from the author. I'm personally a little obsessed with perspective. The initiative I run is called Perspective South, so you would understand. I think perspective is important, whether in everyday sort of intimate relationships that we have between parents and children, or husbands and wives, or peers and friends. But perspective is equally important at the state level, interstate level, and of course at the multilateral level. And I think we are all aware of the value that has been placed on Dr. Jayatilaka's perspective by countless politicians and parties here in Sri Lanka, but also foreign governments, including the big three. And that's the wisdom, I think, political, practical, and in a sense for me, spiritual in its level of prophecy that the book encapsulates. And you heard it from the editors, its relevance. And I think that's the importance of the book, really. And I wanted to kind of start it off with that. And the first theme that I wanted to look at was that of unilateralism and some of the tools it uses. I thought this theme was important to start off with because we are in an ever-present danger of it, especially when you're from the global south. I think there's a palpable feel of it rather than if you were from the developed world or the global north. On this theme, the author details how world powers, such as the United States, will not accept anything less than predominance and unipolarity over any power or combination of powers, and it looks at the state of affairs in terms of how Russia and China fit into this equation, also how the two countries are perceived because of this, which I think is also important in our day-to-day dealings, even in the way we sort of consume new media and what we understand by it. And I'm quoting from one part of the book now. The implications are twofold. The United States and its allies cannot and will not permit a truly multipolar world, and the minimum role in world affairs that is commensurate with Russia and China's interests will fall short of the maximum role that the United States and its allies will be willing to concede. In another section, the author says, a strong Russian state will never be viewed as anything but a threat by the US, just as they will never view a strong China as anything but a threat. I won't go into the full quote, but what I'm reading to you is from different corridors of time that the book sort of brings together, but then you fast forward to last week when President Xi Jinping is meeting with US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and he says something to the, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says something to the effect of he hopes that China would be considered a partner and not a rival, really. And this, it really triggered some of the stuff in me that the book had brought into light. And again, it goes back to this idea of the relevance of this book and the ability to actually use this book as a handbook, as it were, when we are consuming this sort of media. Because this discussion, even in terms of China and the US, there is a sort of hope, whether it's China or whether it was the USSR during the end of the Cold War, which the book also looks at, but also in terms of countries like our own, like Sri Lanka, to be seen as an equal by the United States. And I think it's a reoccurring theme in history that countries like ours can empathize with. This is also something heard repeatedly while you meet maybe Chinese stakeholders. And it really does stem from a perspective of seeing the United States as an equal, as a partner, and based on this sort of reciprocal hope that that is how the United States would see these countries from the global south. And the book really provides food for thought in relation to this imbalance in the global system. I'm wondering if I should just go on with my other points, or do we want to open up the floor and then maybe continue? Yes, yes, for sure.